Why don't they want to put the gaskets on?
They won't serve any purpose. Because if you've already accepted the fact that it's safe with the doors not having closures, what purpose are the gaskets?
Is there ever a purpose for sheltering in your room? I mean, I see when there's a fire in the room, you're gonna exit the corridor and your study makes sense for that. But if you were to not be able to exit the corridor for whatever reason, and you needed to shelter in place, those gaskets would serve a purpose.
No, I mean, if it's a sprinkler building, the assumption is generally that the fire originates in a room.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so you still have the detectors giving you a warning within 12, 16 seconds. And in less than 2 minutes, you have sprinkler operation.
So it starts in a room and the door don't close.
That's exactly what the test,
That's
what the test tested. That you have tenable conditions, egress conditions in the building, even with the door open.
I've read that as well, and I would concur on that. Seen, obviously, the sprinkler system from the non-sprinkler buildings. Obviously, if this is a non-sprinkler building, I would want every affordable protection as far as.
Absolutely.
Because that goes, and we just recently had one of those, where they left the door wide open. And, yeah, the smoke was, pretty thick.
And the difference is because you have the fire growth, and fire doesn't grow in a linear fashion. It grows in a geometric fashion.
Whereas I know with the fully sprinkled buildings, because we had 2 fires in the past, or we had more than that, 2 fires in the past 2 months. One was a non-sprinkler building, door was left open, a lot of smoke. Second building, fully sprinkled, lithium fire.
Oh, God.
And the sprinklers actually kept it at bay and actually put it out.
That's a challenging fire to say.
And yet the sprinkler system.
And with students bringing
In a
in
residential
scooters, electric scooters, I mean.
Good point, David.
Hi, Ed. This is Christina Collister with RTM Consultants. One of the things that we've been looking at with these doors, and one of the reasons that this all started way back when, was with the smoke gaskets. We actually have trouble maintaining the doors. Gaskets have never really been highly effective in staying on the doors. Sometimes they actually prevent the doors from closing. So an emergency situation when they're trained to leave and close the doors, the gaskets actually will keep that door open and keep it from closing. A tightly fitting door, all of our fire doors are tightly fitting. They don't require gaskets. And that's where you've got a bigger fire that you're trying to prevent from accessing the door. When they're tightly fit, if you keep that 1/8 inch around them and they're fitted, the amount of smoke from pressurization that can get through the door around the edges is less than it's going to get through underneath the door when it gets there. So it's a pressurization thing. We've been trying to get them out of the code for a bit, but when it's in the code committees, it's just tough to do. They have limited where they need to be, but they don't actually. Ed's correct with the sprinkler building, the pressurization that you get or the overpressurization isn't really enough to force it through the openings that you have just when the door is tightly fitted. So, and then it just becomes a security and a maintenance issue to keep those things on the doors. Every kid that's standing at the door talking to his friend is going to be picking at it, pulling at it. We just did a brand new data center where they put the gaskets on all of the doors to each data center room. This wasn't yours, Jim, but it was a telephone data center, and 30 to 40% of them on brand new construction had already been half removed or falling off, or we couldn't get the doors to shut. And it's more important to us to get those doors to shut. They should be trained if there's a fire in their room to shut the doors. They should go through and shut the doors. It should be enough with all of the testing and the science behind it to not have those gaskets. So removing the gaskets is actually pro keeping those rooms isolated in the event of a fire. So there really is more to it. And I just wanted to interject, sorry.
Thank you.
I was waiting to see if you would say that. I was, because I actually agree with that. I've actually had the same experience. That they tend to get torn off, they're not maintained well.
Christina's got better field experience than I do.
That's just the gas.
The gaskets.
I was unaware of that study.
It's not to discount anything that you said, David, at all. If in a perfect world we could get those things to actually work, they would probably be an improvement. The problem is in reality, we've never been able to get them to work.
And I think you, in the past, like you gave us the same report on another
Yes,
building review.
yes, we've had this on a lot of projects. It's just this gasket one is only followed on certain ones, but yeah. Should I talk about F or?
Yes.
Sure. So variance F is the requesting to not provide smoke dampers in the ventilation supply ducts serving the rated corridors from floors 6 through 15. We'll have a corridor smoke detection system in addition to the detectors within each sleeping room. The corridor detection system will shut down the air handling system supplying the corridor. So this, again, was approved for the other Purdue project high-rise building that we did just a year ago up in West Lafayette and several other occasions. This was one that was actually introduced, I believe, on that project by the mechanical engineer, because he's made the point that this requirement in section 717 is tied to whether or not you have smoke and draft control assemblies protecting the corridor, which we do nominally. I mean, but if we're variancing out of the closers as we always have, then, you know, you really don't have that level of protection. So their rationale was that it would be just as effective to just have the detection system to shut down the air handling system serving the corridor and prevent the recirculation of smoke from the room of fire origin. And typically that's actually the ventilation ducts for the corridor typically run separate. They're not connecting the units anyway. So the code requires a smoke damper at a duct opening into the corridor through a corridor, rated corridor element, where the duct has an opening to the corridor. So typically these are done through separate units that supply the corridor. So it's not even really communicating from the separate rooms to the corridor. So it would really happen if you had a fire, then the fire's smoke gets into the corridor, is returned back to the unit, and then at that point, it's in the return air, so it would shut down. Well, at any time it's detected either at the unit or detected in the corridor itself, then you're going to get shut down at the unit. So it would function just as well as It shut the damper down. Well, yeah, but smoke dampers cost $3,500 a piece, so they're very expensive. I think this is safe without them.
But it's an extra layer of protection.
Yeah. But you're also not communicating the separate rooms with the corridor either, so you don't really have much of a hazard. It would have to originate really kind of in the same space. And I say 3,500. I said that 20 years ago. It's probably twice that now.
They are.
Going back to the gas, I just realized I looked at the plans all the units have 2 layers of doors before you get to the corridor. Yeah, right.
I think that, I believe that you would have within the suite, you might have, well, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to put drawings here to confirm.
Like you have like a little vestibule with the
Well,
sinks, and then you have 2 doors to your.
yeah, I mean, these are just individual rooms, what I'm seeing here, unless,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You're
On
looking
levels,
at the next floor.
on levels 14 and 15, that is true. But I think the 6 through the 13 is just individual rooms, smaller rooms that egress directly to the corridor, like a double, single, double, triple, quad. But all in one space, yeah. We also have all the other high-rise provisions. We've got pressurized stairs, emergency power systems, voice alarm system. Uh, All the other high-rise requirements are met.
Don't have the mechanical drawings in here.
Correct. But they won't have a central system that's serving the rooms and the corridors. It's always a separate unit, just supplying the corridor. It's an awful lot of ductwork. You're trying to do everything in common, so that I know that to be a fact.
Did Commissioner Carpenter have a comment on that one? Did he already say it, or?
As far as the dampers go in the ductwork,
Yeah.
I would, again, I would be in favor of having the dampers, but I am also looking at the plans as Commissioner Cook is. I think I would specifically for the gaskets and the automatic closing doors, I'd defer to the commission with the dampers and the ductwork. I think any kind of smoke protection that we can provide, or that is just that extra layer of keeping that toxic smoke out of away from people. That would be my
That's more,
input.
even the fire too.
Without it, it's the end.
Even the fire, without it, yeah. If the unit doesn't, it's supposed to do both.
Yeah.
This can be tied into the fire alarm system too, if you have true smoke and fire. It's just a fire damper, it's gonna be on the length, which means you gotta have heat.
Yeah. No,
All right, think about it. All right. I'll make a motion to.
A through E.
Now, see if we can do this one. A through K with the exception of F. I'll go to.
Second F.
Okay. We got a first and second to approve everything from A through K with the exception of F. Which is further discussion. All right, Mr. Burgess.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yeah.
Mr. Chris.
Yes.
Mr. Davidson. No. Mr. Hyde.
Yes.
Chairman. Yes. Mr. Caterino.
Yes.
Mr. Porter.
Yes.
Mr. Slaughter.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Zayner.
Yes.
So those have been approved. So we should have some further discussion on F with the dammers.
I would motion to deny. Yeah. Myself.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the motion made. Mr. Burks.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
No.
Mr. Chris.
No.
Sorry, what was that?
No.
Mr. Davis. Yes. Mr. Hyde.
No.
Chairman. I guess motion was to
Deny.
Deny. F, yes. I would say.
All
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. I thought. Okay. Mr. Caterino? No. Mr. Porter?
Yes.
Mr. Slaughter?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Zayner?
No.
The type.
I was counting.
6-5 in favor of denial.
Very good. Good. 6-5. No.
Thank you very much.
Okay, looks like we have 24-12-39, the Cigar Box and Lounge, Westfield.
Ed Rensink, RTF Consultants. So this project involves a build out for a cigar bar.
It's Ed.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I jumped the gun here.
That's all right. This is proposed to use a posted occupant load of 95, where an occupant load is calculated at 132. It's for a 5B/A2. This is a shell building, new construction, and they want to use a chapter 34. Does have a fire alarm. Take it away, Ed.
Ed Rensink, RTM Consultants. So this building was constructed in just last year. I was released as a B/M occupancy. It was set up for 2 tenants. Has 2 front doors. In June of this year, the cigar box people came and with interest in developing this for a cigar bar. So a different occupancy than how it was originally released. So this was filed. I'm sort of doing this backwards, but I'll do this anyway, just since that was brought up. It was filed as a chapter 34. We did get a design release for that. And I'll say here that the very last attachment that you have has the most information. So I've kind of summarized everything in that last attachment, including addressing the concerns from the fire department and as well as some other issues, and kind of restated the variance. So it might be quicker just to look at that. So it was issued a design release under a chapter 34. it did pass without either a detection system or a sprinkler system, and it was not based on an occupant load of less than 100, because we can take a negative score for sprinklers under the Chapter 34 and make it pass by providing other things. So I understand this is a first-time tenant. This points to the way that Chapter 34 is written in the preamble. If you go to the model code, it will say that it can be used on buildings built after such and such a date. Indiana does not have that. So in theory, you could use it for any existing building. So, there's nothing breaking the rules about doing it. So, I mean, when we do the new Chapter 34, we might want to think about putting an amendment in there that says something like buildings built before the adoption of this code or something like that, just so it's, if there's a concern about this. But at any rate, that is true. It was filed and received a design release for the Chapter 34. So, and that was based on a calculated occupant load for the seating area of about 120. Total occupant load would include some of the service areas for employees. What we're requesting, because of this concern about it being first use, I decided that we will just file a variance for the occupant load, because it seemed like that was something we had done before on a lot of buildings where the actual occupant load is less than calculated. In this case, on the third sheet of drawings you have, it shows the seating layout, and we've got 78 seats in there. It's leather chairs with side tables, so it's quite a bit different than even a restaurant setting, but it has, we're considering it less concentrated use, but it actually, the seating plan yields a smaller number than if you calculate it divided by 15. So we're saying we have a maximum actual seating count of 78. 4 employees would be on shift at one time. So our actual occupant load is about 82. So we're asking for 95 because there is an objection that, well, you could add a chair or two in there somewhere, but I don't think very many, because you're going to start affecting the experience of the space if you try to cram chairs in there. That's not the way this kind of establishment works. It's meant to provide kind of a quality, high level experience. So that's that point. We will provide a full, as suggested by the LFO comment, we will provide a heat detection system throughout. That wasn't required under the Chapter 34. It's not required to rules for new construction, but we'll have detection throughout, as well as a manual fire alarm system, which also would not be required by rules for new construction because it's less than 300 people. So we'll have a monitored fire alarm system that would consist of manual pull stations and heat detectors throughout the space. Secondly, the furniture seating will comply with the ignition resistance requirements, part of the CPSC standard, as well as the heat release requirements in the fire code, which typically would only apply to an R or an I occupancy, but we'll comply with that. The kitchen, there is a pizza oven that's UL listed without venting. We do have a sandwich press and a microwave, but there's no cooktop or other equipment producing grease-laden vapors. Nothing is cooked from scratch here, no meats or things like that. Everything's pre-cooked. And then item 4 in my attachment, I've said that already about the number of seats. We do have 3, number 5, we have 3 exterior exits with panic hardware. We only need 2. Maximum travel distance from the public area is 60 feet. Code permits 200, so we have very short travel distance and 3 exits. Finally, we did look into the cost of a sprinkler system, because obviously that's what's at stake here with the occupant load issue. The cost for the sprinkler system, which we attached, the estimate for that is at 161,529. Project cost is right at 3 times that, it's 493,000. Also have, Mr. Tim Daly is here with the owner if there's questions about the business and so forth.
In that, looking at your floor plan, so 1799, you based off of the main room and you got 120 people, right?
Yes, yes.
So, but there's a private room that says that if you look at the occupant load in there, that's another 12 added.
I came up with a total of 120 counting that room. I think that the other,
Well, that's what I'm asking. So looking at your plans, it looks like the main room is 1799. Oh. And then they had a private room that's another 188 that adds another 12 people. So at the top of your plan. So I didn't think that that was included in that.
originally these plans here that I've got.
So I show there's a private room, 808, and so that has 12 people. And then you have your main room, which has 120 people. And then obviously you have the accessory use areas.
Yeah.
Where it adds another 4 or 5 people. So when you set your occupant load,
That 170.
when you set your occupant load, take 1799, that's gonna be 119 point something, so 120 people. And then you take that private room up top, you get 12 people that can be in there.
All right.
And that's if you divide it by 15, which I don't know, that's really not tables and chairs. I mean, I said it because we've got one of these. I've got one of these at home and not at my home, but back in our city.
Yeah.
And when they first opened a number of years ago, they had it was a private club that was very exclusive. Now it's opened up and it is huge. They shut down the whole street at different times, get permits because they have huge things going on there. And it is almost always really busy on the weekends. And so they'll shut the street down as well and have a big block party.
It's a cigar.
What's that?
It's a cigar.
It is a cigar bar.
Wow.
I believe
That big.
neither did I until then. And so, you know, and they opened it up as we have a smoking ordinance in Portland. And so they did it to get around the smoking ordinance as well. And it is a small little place, a huge venue. They've added outdoor seating in the back throughout spring and summer and fall, where it is really busy. They have a mercantile area in there where you buy cigars and other things that you can purchase from them. But I said with ours, and I've seen a few other, obviously you're calling it a cigar bar, but I'm talking about regular bars too, where we set an occupant load, and I understand setting an occupant load for some things, some things like wedding venues that we get where they're way out in the country and you don't have any sprinkler so we set an occupant load, you can't get a sprinkler system to them. But setting an occupant load within the city limits in a building that has the potential to have a lot of people in it, get a lot of people because who doesn't want to make money? So it's like, hey, yeah, we're only got 78 people, but we're gonna have this thing going on this weekend, and I know I can fit 150 people in there. So always concerns because we get a lot of bars that try to overload, or that I know that if we set an occupant load, they'd be. I deal with that when they try and do their direct TV stuff for all their sporting events. And they say, hey, can you come give us an occupant load of, 78 people? That'll cost us less money. And I'm like, well, if we're going to give you an occupant load, then you're going to post that. That's what you're going to keep because they don't want to pay for that 200 occupant load that they would have to pay. That's just my 2 cents on setting an occupant load and when I would be considering in some building and then it just kind of concerns me that it was a brand new building you know, and they decided to do a chapter 34 on a brand new structure.
Well, that wasn't anticipated.
I didn't know that, so, you know, you got texting in the same.
Someone could use trickery and deceit based on the loophole in code. That's this case. It's not that. It's
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I'm not calling anybody out. I've dealt with the same situation where it's like, hey, we built this strip mall and, you know, now we're not filling it up like we thought we would. So we're going to do this instead. It's meet that intent, you know, I mean, it wasn't intended to be that. It's intended to be an outcome.
And that's why I decided not to push the chapter 34. I could have said, okay, we'll go for an interpretation of the state building commissioner, which I suppose I still could do. Because I don't think there's anything against the code using the chapter 34. But my point here is that we're offering a detection system which isn't required even under the chapter 34 plus the alarm, 60 feet travel distance. And can they get some more chairs in here? Yeah, but I've also got a cushion in there again. So, because right now they're showing 78 seats in here. So, I mean, could they get 10 more in there? Maybe. But this kind of seating isn't the kind you can really just push together and get that much more in. You know, and it's not, this is not probably nobody under 30 years old is that much interested in this. I don't know, unless who knows.
That's what I thought.
But maybe they're big on it now. I don't know.
You know,
Actually, that was probably.
District ours opened up, it was a bunch of, it
Joe Burrow likes.
was a little older, so it's an older crowd, I thought, because they had to be private, you had to buy a membership.
Yeah.
But now it's not a membership, I don't
Yeah,
believe
yeah.
anymore, now it's just open up and
Yeah.
now it's evolved from just a cigar bar, now they
Yeah,
sell
I mean,
beer, wine, liquor, and, you know.
It's not an age thing necessarily. I understand I was probably 30 years old the last time I smoked a cigar. So.
I've never been in it because I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that.
I don't particularly care if it's cigar smoke myself. But you know, the point here though, this isn't just an average bar. It's not the sort of thing that's going to be, it closes at midnight. It's not going to have, live music other than maybe a guy with a guitar or something like that, but it's not.
That's what I thought. Because ours is the same way. It was like, hey, you know, we're gonna put a guy with an acoustic guitar over in the corner. Now it's like, and then it's close to it's close to our tin cap stadium, our baseball stadium. So it gets busy before the games and then it gets really busy after the games. And yeah, I can't believe all the people that go over there and hang out and how, like I said, now they block the street off, and before it was just cigar, then it was like membership and you brought your own liquor and kept it in a locker, but now they sell it. Yeah. Then yeah, and then they've got this, and it used to be, the sad thing was it used to be just a 2-story home that they converted to a class 1 structure from class 2. And then what used to be the backyard of the garage is now evolved into huge fun structure. And then the street gets closed down. Yeah, it's a single.
I've been in a couple. One in Indianapolis, one in the Fishers, Noblesville. Typically, they're not that full. Typically, there's only a few people. Just from my.
That's how ours started out to be.
Day too.
And that's how ours started out to be.
Yeah, Saturday night.
People.
Yeah, it's
And
right
they're
down.
just like, okay, we understand that.
This is right down the street from Grand Carter.
So now it's involved into laws. Anyway, let's hear from you, sir.
Ryan for Westfield Fire. That's my biggest issue is lowering the occupant load essentially to get around the sprinkler system. And you're gonna have, in my opinion, a lot of out of towners that could be visiting this that don't know it because it's a mile from Grand Park. And given that it's upholstered furniture, cigars, you know, the ignition sources, that kind of stuff. So that, I mean, that's my biggest concern. This actually started with the chapter 34. I wasn't sure how that applied. And then it's evolved into the occupant load. So that's my biggest concern with lowering it, is how to monitor that occupant load. Stuff evolves. I mean, we all see it. It starts as this, and then they can do this because they have a big tournament going on at Grand Park. So that's my 2 cents, I guess.
Ed,
Yes.
I may have missed it, but so chapter 34 looks like it you ran the 3412. Why are you here, I guess? It seems like you passed it.
Because here, I'll tell you exactly why, is because this was questioned by the chief. And I kind of knew why. I thought I knew why. And then, we spoke on the phone earlier this week and, that was exactly, that was this ambiguity about, well, this is a first use tenant space. So can you use a chapter 34 on the first use in the tenant space? It's been assigned an occupancy classification, has a CDR. It's built. I mean, the shell is built. There's quite a bit of stuff that needs to be done inside with the build out. But it is an existing building. And there is nothing, if you go into chapter 34, there's nothing in there that says, well, you can't use this. And I think if you look at the model code, I know it's in there.
Yeah,
There's a blank line in there that says before, and some jurisdictions are really strict about that. They might even go back to like before 2000. I think that's too strict, but there's nothing in there that would say that I cannot use chapter 34, which I would presume that's why I wasn't. And I didn't try to hide the fact that I said it was built in 2023 and originally classified and, here's the use of the building. So,
Again, I think we could all agree that the intent of what this said was stripped out for our Indiana code that says all it has to be is an existing building and a change of use to use 3412. And so I wasn't around when that revision was made. I don't know if anybody else was, but that's the black and white letter of the law. So I think it's inappropriate for us to require more than what the law says. Now, if you want to add heat detection with, consultation with the fire department, limit your occupancy in consultation with the fire department. Those are great things, but they are above and beyond what the law seems to require. Yeah,
I guess to be honest, it was giving deference to the fire department because I thought I didn't want to get into an argument about whether chapter 34 could be used or not. Apparently the occupant load issue is a tougher argument to make. I don't know. So maybe I didn't choose the right path here, but I guess in a word, I took it seriously, the objection. And I thought, well, if we can add some extra protection to the building and limit the occupant load, then it wouldn't matter whether I use chapter 34 or not. But if I use chapter 34, there's no limit on the occupant load per se. It'd just be, it would just be based on whatever factor you apply to it from table 1004.1.2.
Yeah, I feel, I guess I just, part of our role is to hold a minimum standard and part of our role is to make sure that we're not requiring more than that minimum standard.
But it's your house. It's your family. Working relationship's gotta be good rapport.
I was just looking at it as going from B or an M to an A2. Because it's now an A2.
Yeah, but again, you're permitted to use 3412 if it's an existing building with a new occupancy. So he checks both those boxes. An existing building with a new occupancy.
I understand, but it's never made.
There's never been an occupancy. It says new occupancy. Well,
It was built with an intended occupancy,
If you
right?
get a CDR, it has an occupancy classification. It's on CDR. So legally, that is the use of the building.
When they get a, they got a, did they get a, why is the word escaping me, a completion, or what's the? Certificate. Did you get a certificate?
Well, no, because it's just shelled out.
It's still building.
Oh,
It's shelled out. So there's some more, the outside is finished. It's paved, all that stuff, which is why the sprinkler system is so expensive because They have access
So
to
you
water
never got
supply.
a certificate of occupancy for the original.
No, because there's no, that would only be if you actually have a tenant.
We'll look at those, and that's what I'm saying. We'll get those as a shell building. And there's no flooring. It'll be gravel.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, most of the time.
So if it was never granted an occupancy,
Correct.
then it's not an, okay, now I'm following your, so I just talked myself out of my argument.
We get that quite a bit, you know, where they build a shell building and it's like.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we along with the. building
This one's
permit
half and half, I understand.
It
In
was just
terms
a
of
shell. Now it's becoming something else than what it originally was.
Yeah.
Or was intended for.
Yeah.
And they don't have sprinklers. And sometimes we've had certain places move in next door and then we require them to put sprinklers along that wall that they put up to protect the other structure. Because now they need to have sprinklers on the inside.
Alright. Well, I retract my argument about, I mean, now with that information, I don't think it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the plumbing can be, or the plumbing might be stuck, but.
So back to the,
And that's
Yeah, this is kind of an approach to try to avoid that.
well, but
Fire protection.
I think that would be you need to have an occupancy in place before you can.
And that's why I did not. That's why I didn't push the chapter 34 thing. It's like, yeah, we got a CDR for it, but I thought, this is ambiguous enough. If I'm being pressed on this issue, I just felt it was more. It was a better approach to say that we won't have 100 people in the building. So that's why I only added the chapter 34 information as kind of, I didn't even tell you it was under chapter 34, I don't think, in the variance application.
Yeah.
So, but it came out in the discussions. And so I thought, well, I should at least add that as a fact. But the sprinkler system is very expensive at this point, right, wrong, or indifferent, because of the fact that, it would be a lot less expensive, obviously, if it had been done in the building before the building was built, but got to tear up a lot of pavement. It's quite a long distance to get the water to the building. So, it is what it is. Cost is significant. It's a third of the cost of the project.
It's the cost of doing business.
Yeah,
I mean, we get.
I understand. I'm just saying.
Shell buildings all the time that.
But
They don't know who's gonna move in, then also now it's decided that, well, this factory wants to buy this or this store.
I understand that, but I'm often asked what the cost of the project is versus.
I know.
Sometimes it makes no sense if it's a big project, but on these smaller projects, it doesn't.
So it's still a shell?
Yes, it has, as I understand, there's a concrete floor on about half of it right now. So they've got to do the rest of the concrete, like utilities and so forth. So, yeah, it's just a shell building. The outside is pretty much done.
Yeah.
The outside's completed, right, as far as, yeah.
But the finish hasn't started.
Correct. Well, we just got it, I think, to start, but holding off here until we figure out what's going on with this.
This is a kind of proof that they're not buying it, correct?
That is correct.
Is an obligation on, I need to negotiate and I wouldn't want to get involved in it, but is this really the building owner's responsibility to get the water to them?
Yeah, I've done a windy path to this point on this, but I just feel like it's too much of a stretch to be asking for not to conform with requirements for a sprinkler system for a shell building that's getting ready to have an occupant that would require it. And in a
But
spot.
again, the argument is we won't have 100, less than 100 people.
Yeah, but then that requires certain monitoring and of and we've talked, I mean, bars are a risky place for monitoring the occupant load.
And bars don't have those. So the one cigar bar we have took off really well and it's huge. And I don't know, I mean, they do really well. Now, the other cigar bar that they opened up by a strip mall, it went defunct in like 6 months. And became, well, it became anything because now they can't do anything with the building.
Let's get a hazmat team in.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
This is a great location.
But you know, so if the cigar bar goes out and it's considered an A2, and a restaurant decides to move in, and that restaurant puts tables and chairs in and goes, hey, I'm, 120 plus already got a private room. I can put another 12 people in to host a fall conference.
But the variance goes with the building, not the tenant, so it would still apply.
That's the point, right? Yeah, it would be a use that would clearly qualify for the sprinkler requirement, but because of the variance, it wouldn't be required.
Right here.
Any A2 that goes, if the variance were approved, any A2 that ever came in this building would have to stay under 100 occupancy.
As long as we're told about it, the fire department's told that, hey, the cigar bar moved out, now we
Yeah.
got another restaurant. coming
Probably
in.
kind of hard to hide.
Because that normally it doesn't always happen that way.
No.
It's like, oh, this guy moved out, somebody else is moving in, and they think they can do whatever they choose, because that's what their rules.
Yeah, I think things are watched a little bit right here. Let's build this.
It's in that spot.
I mean, Westfield's growing. I don't think the woods is.
Fastest growing small town in the US.
I get lost in Lord, I'm on Second Street out there, they were about on site. We can jump.
And just for information, what was the cost of the shell building, the projected cost of the tenant finish,
The tenant finish is $493,000.
the shell building?
The shell building cost originally,
Yeah.
I don't have that information. My client didn't do the original building, so I don't usually have that information.
493 plus 100 for the spring. If they had to do.
161,000 for a sprinkler system.
Maybe if we include the cost of shell building is probably less than 20%, maybe.
That shell building.
I agree with him that the owner should have to bring it forward.
Well, that's not our place though.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's their business and negotiation strategy, not where we make a decision on this.
I just, like I said, I just know how it is with us and our shell buildings and.
That shell building could have, it's certainly under $1 million. It could have been, 600,000.
I think so, because it's 3,100 square feet, so it could have been easily done.
Total up, $1 million.
So 16%, something like that. Yeah. Things like
That's probably about right, because it's 3,100 square feet tall. Simple building, really.
Well, I'll make a motion to deny. Based on my path to where we're at.
I'm gonna second that. Okay. Commissioner Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Cook,
Yes.
Mr. Chris,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson,
No.
Mr. Hyde,
Yes.
Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Patarino,
Yes.
Mr. Porter,
No.
Mr. Slaughter,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Zane.
Yes.
That one is tonight.
Okay, so the verdict is, if it's a shell building, I know we're gonna see this. If it's a shell building, they cannot do a chapter 34 if they have not received a certificate of occupancy. Is that what I heard?
I mean, that's how,
I think you'd get arguments either way on that. I'm not sure it's a settled issue. I have my own opinions, but.
Interpretation request for the state building commissioner.
Here, he tried to say the same issue. You guys are doing We did the same thing, you know.
Could you put
Pulling out the book.
Yeah. It'd be nice to clarify that in our next code update, to be more clear.
I think a simple, not make it too strict, but just say it's, you can use this chapter can be used on any building constructed before the adoption of this code. Then you're gonna, I mean, theoretically, get somebody around on the scene, but nobody's gonna figure that out. That's too hard to
I
find.
can come here to ask about that too.
Yeah, but I mean, generally, you know, once you get a year or two out, it's gonna be a building that's been used for something else. And, you know, arguably a newer building should be better under chapter 34 because, you know, you've got a structure. It's built in modern structural codes and all that sort of thing. But I don't agree with restricting it to really old buildings, but yeah.
When we discussed it in-house, you know, you have buildings that are sitting with no tenant for 4 or 5 years sometimes, you know, so there's big difference. Quite often it seems to happen on storage buildings that get reassigned assembly. That's not really.
If you're really devious, that would be the way to do it.
And sometimes.
Distribution center and turn it into a mega church.
It might have a little trouble with the allowable area calculation, although if it's all one story, you might be able to.
I mean,
It makes that work, actually.
and then shouldn't be such a great discussion, but we're not gonna wrap up today. Do you have the last one?
I do.
You said they had them all, so let's move on, 24-12-40, the Hunt Club edition, Zionsville.
This is an A2 occupancy, over 100 occupants, and they're requesting to not provide a sprinkler system. This is an existing building, but they are adding on. Pretty big addition.
Edwards and RTM Consultants. So we are requesting a variance to not put a sprinkler system in the existing building plus addition. The existing building constructed in 1966. This is in rural Zionsville. It's in the country, but it is in the Zionsville city limits, town limits. It is an existing use. It's not a change of use. There's an addition planned of just over 5,000 square feet. Right now, it's just one building. You do whatever events going on there, you do it all in one space. So the idea with the addition is that it would allow, for say, a wedding event, you use the existing space for a reception hall where you've got the catering kitchen nearby. And then you have the ceremony in this other space where it's got a small adjoining bride and groom space. There is an existing Zionsville use restriction for a maximum occupant load of 186. So that's, I'm not basing the variance on that, but that's just a point of discussion, is that we're not increasing the occupant load permitted in the building by other rules. So we are, is set up kind of similar to the other several variances we've had on these kind of facilities where it doesn't have access to a public water supply. Doing the manual fire alarm system, detection system throughout, we have the shunt trip provided. We've got more than the required numbers of exits. We've got travel distance of 50 feet, total permits up to 200. The kitchen is catering, no stove or cooktop. Decorative lighting will comply with the, will be a commercial grade UL listed and will comply with the electrical code for all electrical installations. Any decorative combustible materials will be fire retardant treated. And then we've had several other variances similar to this. The cost for the sprinkler system, including the pump, the building for the pump, the tank and so forth, and running the sprinklers is about $300,000. Plus some additional electrical and site work. The budget for the project is $2.5 million.
Josh Ross, Zionsville Fire Department. We have been working through this project with the proponent at great length, and they have done their due diligence to try to work out selective systems. We've gone pretty far down paths for some alternatives, and we don't disagree that there's a significant hardship for trying to bring water from miles apart. They've gone so far as to look at trying to secure a well to provide for a system in tandem with some of these other options. They've looked at alternative water supplies, limited area sprinklers, et cetera. And we don't disagree that they have a hardship that they're not able to reasonably provide sprinkler protection. They have gone out of their way to provide additional exiting and reduce the hazards that are present. So at this point, we do not oppose the variance request.
Thank you. That's it. I'll second on that.
Commissioner Burgess,
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chris,
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde,
Yes.
Chairman. Yes. Commissioner Patarino.
Yes.
Commissioner Ford,
Yes.
Commissioner Scarr,
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Yes.
That was approved.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next agenda items. We have 2 industrialized building system renewals, DHS supports. DHS
One
supports.
question. We had a variance that was submitted last month. We did not have enough votes on the to make a quorum. And we are on the agenda as an open item from last month, as far as the notes. It is the Wings and Swings, et cetera, in Vincennes, Indiana. Item 241053. Is it possible to discuss that at today's meeting?
I recall the last motion was in denial, correct?
It was in the process of voting, but I did want to clarify a few things that were comments made as part of the vote. This is, it was part of some of the comments made, since it was a Wings and Swings, there's a lot of wings and swings, and that they should have known. That it was also seen as a sports bar in a college town. This location actually was a failed Wings and Swings in Jasper, Indiana, that was purchased by this franchisee that is relocating it to Vincennes, Indiana. It is in a shopping district surrounded by residential and on the opposite side of town from the campus of Vincennes University. Their food to alcohol scenario is 85+% food, so 15% alcohol, and 15% of total sales are actually takeout for Grubhub and DoorDash and everything like that. What we're asking for, and they have worked with the local building department and fire department, is that we post signage and we maintain that there are a maximum of 99 people inside the building. It is larger than what the building code would allow for, and they would remove all seating down to that 99 item. He is not looking to have a sport. It is a restaurant bar, yes, but their main business focus is on food and eating, not on a college sports bar situation. And like I said, the local building department was signed off on it, is good and supports them opening. The local fire department supports an opening. I know there's a letter on our letterhead that, I didn't think I thought it was really weird that they asked that letter be on our letterhead, but they did. And so I worked with the local authorities having jurisdiction to draft that letter, and that they approved that letter. And I'm asking to a reconsideration of that conversation.
Thank you for that clarification, sir. Just to remind the commissioners, we were in the process of doing a vote to deny at the last meeting. We lost Commissioner Crisp, so we lost quorum at that point. We did do extensive discussion on this for the commissioners who weren't here, just to give a little background of where this one currently sits.
So the reasoning for no sprinklers is because I believe in the documentation that was included, it was going to be an additional $96,000 to run a sprinkler line from a public waterway over to the building. And that was roughly 20% of the total cost of the construction project. They have more exits as far as number that they are required. They have wider exiting width than required. They have put in all of the hoods, all the code required hoods and everything along those lines. They have went above and beyond on a fire alarm system that would not, as far as the extent of those fire alarm systems, that would not be fully required. And that has been in conjunction with the local fire and building department.
Excuse me. All right, so we don't have it on our agenda. I have no information on it with me right now, so I can't look at anything that you're trying to tell me or tell the commission, because we have nothing in front of us to have it on our agenda, nor do I have any of the paperwork at all with me to actually take a look at this. All we can do is kind of listen.
But it's in the, this is where we got to take a step back. Right now, it's in processed applications.
Correct, but it's
Can
not on
we-
the agenda right now.
And we could vote to put it back on the agenda, correct?
You could, yeah.
So I think it'd be fair to him, to put it back on the agenda, consider it just like any other variance, now that we have quorum, and take action.
To hear it. When?
To hear it again today.
Today.
Yeah, because he was on the agenda last meeting, we lost quorum and we couldn't make our final action on it.
I know why it's in process, but we'll fix it.
I don't understand that either. Why we process, because I mean, well, I don't know, because we were making a vote on it. But
we
we
didn't have-
lost.
We didn't have quorum to execute the vote.
So I'm saying, realistically, I don't want to be rude to the proponent, but is there any reason to continue discussing this? We discussed it last time. We could just make the motion again, take a vote and go from there.
Yeah, but now you're gonna have commissioners here that weren't here last time,
Right.
that will either, they may want to take act, to make a vote and not just abstain. Or they may abstain and let the vote ride. But that's each commissioner that wasn't here to decide, not for us to just come forward.
Right.
So I think it would be fair to the proponent if they were able to resubmit the information or restate the information with the commissioners that are here now that are creating quorum. I mean, I think that's the fairest thing to do. It may take longer, but I think it's fair.
I mean, I suppose it's up to the chairman, but realistically, the recording is also available. They could go back and listen to that if they wanted to, so.
The proponent's also stating that he had new information that he didn't present last time, which I think is also a reason we would reconsider.
And when you have access to that information.
Well, we got to move the variance from processed applications to before the commission, which I don't know if we can do in this moment.
Right in this moment, no, you can still look it up in DFBS and see the information there. You just have to change the drop down.
Is that prohibitive if it's in processed applications?
That's just our record keeping. That's not like legally binding.
I mean, the reason we're in this situation is because the commission, us, didn't have quorums. And I think it's unfair to the proponent to not hear him out because of a situation that we created.
True.
And again, I apologize for interrupting. I just didn't know when the best to speak.
Yeah, so the first thing we need to figure out is do we need to put the variance into before the commission in the file system?
Hold on a second. It's a variance report. This was on the agenda last time. You guys left for them and so you didn't take official action on it.
Yeah,
So
but
it's still pending before the commission.
Yeah, but in
You
the,
guys can just, like, the drop down menu within that piece of software, you just change the drop down and the information before the commission.
okay.
I mean, I mean, again, it's not my, I'm not on the commission, but if it was for the commission, they're here today, and the information is available to the commission, I would advocate for acting on it today.
That's what I'm saying, like, there's everything we can't hear today. So.
A lot of matters. Deny.
But I stopped counting it.
Pull that back.
Yeah, I'm sure it's well over 100.
The actual factual scenario, as I'm understanding, because I wasn't here last time, was you guys were in the middle of acting on it. It was actively forwarded from the IHS to the commission, and during the pendency of it before the commission, you guys launched forth in the middle of a meeting.
Correct.
So it's just hanging there. To me, as a matter of law, it's still before the commission, and that letter is issued erroneously. So you guys can act right now, notwithstanding what's in the process. If that information is best, go ahead and do this. Like,
24
now,
dash 10-53.
you guys- So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah.
And especially.
What number? 24-10-53.
Yeah. I would move forward and hear it.
So did the proponent get a letter from DHS?
Well, if they did,
It was-
it would be erroneous because if it wasn't acted on, it was still pending as a matter of law, still before the commission, they lost it.
The commission didn't take an official action on it. So whatever's in DFBS is just a glitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Was it in that first window?
We did not get a letter or any notification following the last meeting.
Okay,
Yeah, well, my position would be, as a matter of law, actually just, it's before the commission right now as an action item that needs to be acted on. It's just sitting there.
Okay. So,
All right.
well,
With that said,
I was not sure how to act on this since it's not on our agenda. But were you saying that we can open it back up, correct, for discussion today?
yeah,
We just need to find information.
I think it's number 12, it's because it was just pending.
It's in processed applications?
Processed applications, 24-10-53. You gotta put the drop down to process. 10-53.
This is a request to not install a fire sprinkler system.
If nothing new has been submitted here,
Yeah.
because the last thing is 10/22.
As long as nothing new is, then then I'm fine with moving forward, yes.
Okay.
And the discussion can continue.
that's a variant from 1053.
Process, application process.
Yeah, application's in process. Oh, no.
Yeah, that's what I was making that mistake, process.
Applications. Yeah.
24-10-53. No. Don't do search. It'll search for thousands of.
He helped me.
No, okay.
Back out.
Has everybody got it up yet?
I'll give it.
Go to the bottom one.
We were getting denied.
I don't know, but when last time we spoke, I took it as the temperature or the understanding was that this was mainly a sports bar in a college town and by someone or by a corporation or that by Wings and Swings corporate. And I wanted to pose that, based off of food sales, location, and how they do their business, it is not posed or managed as a college sports bar kind of scenario, and that they are very happy to have a maximum of 99 people inside the restaurant as a maximum at one point.
What is their occupant load supposed to be?
The occupant load by code is significantly more than 99, simply based off the square footage of the building.
So what is it?
Looking at, I forgot the number. I apologize. I
Says in
don't
the
have that
application,
number
it's
in front of me.
256.
Yeah, but that is based off of calculating 15 square feet per person for tables and chair seating area for a lot of area that it cannot be tables and chairs and such as the simulators and the axe throwing areas. You know,
So those would
those
be-
are large areas and they have a maximum of 4 people because there's only 4 seats for that particular area, that particular bay kind of thing.
Based on what we based off 5 square feet per person in a standing room. Because they do,
Is this-
so the question, so they do have games, right? Axe throwing and what else?
Axe throwing, and then
Golf
also
simulator.
golf and sports simulators that are roughly, I think, 14 by 12 feet. And that only one person can be in that 12 by 14 foot space at once. So the square footage based off of the code, I mean, that these simulators weren't around when our current code was written. And so based off of the code, it's a lot higher occupant load due to these areas that are dedicated for the sports for these simulators. That the occupant load, you know, is say 20, where there's one person in it, kind of thing.
Were you saying before that this is not a bar, right? But it's got a big bar.
20
It
seats
has
at it.
It has 20 seats at it, but his business right now, because local authorities approved him opening, is 85% food, 15% alcohol sales, and 15% of his total sales is to-go orders via Grubhub, pickup, and DoorDash. So his focus as a restaurant, or his focus is to be a restaurant that has a bar in it. That's simply the wings and swings required model as far as their to be a franchisee. You have to have a bar. You have to have T111 siding on elements as far as finishes. You have to have so many TVs. You have to have all of these things. But his main focus is food.
Okay, I get that, but it doesn't matter. It's still an A2. An A2 is an A2.
Yes. Yes, I agree with you on that.
Whether you're a restaurant or a restaurant bar or just a restaurant that just only serves food, you're still considered an A2.
Mm-hmm. And
Plus
he would like to host and have a maximum occupant of 99 people, which would be below the required fire suppression requirement.
The seating
And not
layout
put
that
in
was, the seating layout that was provided shows 154 before you calculate what you need for axe throwing and for the staff of the restaurant, 154 patrons.
And that's an error. I'll be honest, that's an error on me as the architect for putting that many seats and so on in there. I maximized it instead of following kind of what his intention was. The working through the fire suppression to non-fire suppression happened post permit once the determination was found that as far as the cost to get a fire line to the building was going to be so drastic and be 20% of the total construction. So it would add 20% to his contract, 20% to the overall build out of that space for a franchisee location that he bought out of essentially bankruptcy that was ran by someone else. He's just changing the locations.
So maybe this was stated while I stepped out, but am I recalling correctly that the design originally had a fire sprinkler system that was never installed?
Yes. So the design included the fire suppression system because we had no knowledge that it would require $100,000 addition to the construction cost to get a fire line to the building, because there's no potable water. You know, there's the potable water line that runs to the building that is directly adjacent to the building is not sufficient to provide a sprinkler. So they have to go on another, they have to cross right away and bore under roads and so on to get to a water line that is of sufficient size.
But that was determined after construction has
Yes,
started.
yes.
So, I mean, yeah, now I'm remembering, that was the sticking point for me. That and that's kind of like you intended to build something that was not built because of cost. And that is kind of out of the purview of what the commission's here for. You know, the design was submitted and with a sprinkler system that was never installed. And that's what was acceptable during code review.
But we're asking for a variance, and now to get out of that, as we work through it with the local building and local fire commission, that they approved to do a more robust fire alarm and not a fire suppression, as long as they keep it under 99 occupants. And so is my understanding is filing for the variance that you guys would want to see what we initially permitted and then discuss what we're talking about changing. And if I misunderstood the process, I apologize. I'm new to the variance process.
Just had this discussion about occupancy limits, occupant capacities, and that was way different because this is 256 and we want to set it at 99. And sorry. Once again, I use my city, so we've got a bar, restaurant. You know, started out as a restaurant with axe throwing and some other type of games. You know, now they've added other things to it. It is, and I must have, our city must be pretty big with bars, but you know, so I know that they stay busy on Friday and Saturday nights, and those axe throwing areas are packed. We don't need people because I've gone in there because of overcrowding on Friday and Saturday nights and had to go in there and do it. I mean, over capacity. So business system. No, it's more just.
Yeah,
I'm not letting anybody in.
I don't understand either if again, it's his business, but if the food's the priority, how do you drop from whatever it was, 150?
256.
Yeah, down to 99 and just say, hey, that's okay, just so I can avoid. Yeah, but they sounds odd to me as a business decision.
And I'd remind the commissioners that the requirements for sprinkling make no distinction between drinking and eating.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
An A2 is an A2.
Yes.
And I mean, he has been functioning at 99 maximum occupancy as of right now, based off of the local authority and local authorities giving him permission to be open. And he's happy at 99 maximum capacity.
So I want to understand the timeline a little bit better as I evaluate this. The building was designed with a sprinkler system, and just help me with the timeline here as I'm talking. So it was designed with a sprinkler system in May of 2024.
Mm-hmm.
It was built between when?
That was been built between May and I believe September of 2024. And during that time, that is when the the price and the availability of water information became available. When they discovered that, they worked with the local building commissioner and local fire department to get their blessing on not putting it in, and then they opened. When I guess it was in October, a state inspector was doing an inspection at the Walmart across the street and asked his boss, "Hey, do you want me to? There's a flag on this or something along those lines. Do you want me to stop in and see if they've put a fire suppression system in?" And he was told yes. So he stopped by. He spoke to the owner. I got on a call with both of them, and that's what started the process of the variance. And to be honest, it was my understanding. It was okay. If local's good with it, we just getting this variance is kind of I don't want to say it's a technicality, but that's how it was portrayed to me. And so that's why I did not do revised drawings or anything like that. We submitted what we had. If it was a situation where, okay, we needed to do and was presented to me in a way that well, you need to redesign this by taking tables out and showing us how that there's no way this is going to be over 99. I would have certainly created additional paperwork, additional documentation showing the actual usage without having all of the seats and all of the tables and such.
And maybe I just missed it there, and I remember we discussed this last month, but why wasn't the fire suppression system done?
Due to the cost. It was
No,
it was a
during
financial
construction.
hardship.
Yes, no, during construction. So if the drawings got approved by the state with a fire suppression system, how is it that it didn't get done during construction? Because that's what was approved.
Good question.
Somebody made a decision not to build it. Correct? And the date on this is from Midwest, October 11th. That is after construction is completed. So I'm trying to figure out why wasn't the fire protection system built? Was there no quote? Were they never planning on building it?
I asked for that documentation from Midwest Contracting once we were determined had to go through this process, and I asked them why they did not do that. And that is, and so they said it was a financial hardship. I asked for the documentation, and so they gave me the quote. They gave me their documentation, and they dated it the date that
Okay, so
we requested it as part of the process.
So the owner made a decision. They made their own decision that they weren't going to build what was approved. And I think that's maybe why last month we said, no, we were going to deny.
But the owner worked through this with the local building authority.
Yeah, but we're not, they're not a technicality. Okay.
I understand that. I didn't mean to say that. I apologize. That's why I'm saying I did not create additional documentation showing the existing. I showed it as was originally permitted. And that's my fault if I created if I did not create the proper documentation.
Nevertheless, this shouldn't have received an occupancy permit.
Exactly.
When the sprinkler system got deleted from the design, a revised set of drawings at that point should have been sent to state plan review, which certainly wouldn't have released it without the sprinkler system.
The building's been in legal existence since day one, essentially. What was approved was never built.
Yeah, right.
Never up to code from day one. It's never been in legal existence.
Exactly.
It's a matter of law.
Yes. Yeah, that's why we were.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and
It was specified with those plans, and they just opted not to put the sprinkler system in. And
We're saying the other.
yeah, yes. And then the two letters here signed by the fire chief and the building inspector was a little cute here because it's written No offense, it's written by the architect and then have them sign it.
They requested that. I want to point that I thought that was very odd, but they requested that I write that. I discussed it with them. They requested that the letter be on our letterhead, which I thought was weird. And as you mentioned at the last meeting, don't do that again. I'm not ever do that again. So, because I mean, I would think that that should come on their letterhead. But that they.
It's also odd, I think it's also odd that the owner is not here to plead the case, because he's the one who made the decision not to build a fire protection system and not to determine, he basically violated the law when he did this. I'm of the same opinion I was last month, and I would make a motion to deny.
One second.
Okay, was the motion already made?
Can I meant, the owner asked if he should, the owner did ask if he should be on, and I thought it best that since I was the licensed professional to handle the conversation instead of him. That was also partial my error.
You didn't do anything wrong, right? I think at least what I'm suggesting, of course, I don't know, but the owner's the one who made the decision not to violate the law and violate his plan review approval. And he's the one who should make the case, not his architect who didn't do anything.
Well, correct. I mean, it wasn't your choice to not install a fire sprinkler system. I think, well.
Correct.
Hold on.
It was not my choice, but my understanding is he worked through this process with the local and he didn't know to go back to the state. The variance conversation only came up when the state inspector came back and said, hey, you guys have, after the fact, when they were open, and said, hey, you guys have an issue. That's when he was informed, you need a variance for this.
We can also see a further discussion, or do we still have a vote?
I think we have a vote. Yep. So we already have a vote on the table.
I have votes on the table.
Yeah, so. Okay, and there was a second, I believe.
Yes.
Yes, that's the first and second.
Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Commissioner Burgess.
This is a motion to deny, correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Cook.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chris.
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson.
Yes.
Commissioner Height.
Yes.
Chairman.
Yes.
Commissioner Tannenbaum.
Yes.
Commissioner Porter.
Yes.
Commissioner Slaughter.
Yes.
Commissioner Wagner.
Yeah.
Commissioner Zaner.
Abstain.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so your variance has been denied. You are illegally in existence.
Oh, I think there is not.
No, well, I would be speaking to the owner if the owner was here, but he's not here, so I think you need to inform your client that they are illegally in existence and should not be open.
In the state's eyes.
Yeah. I mean, and
Okay.
state signs, and then I would, as local fire and or building official, I would be fully liable for something like that. They should be liable. Okay.
So I apologies again, with the denial is is the only action he has right now is to close at 1 o'clock Eastern until he has a fire suppression system in, even though he worked with local building and fire, until he has a fire suppression system in? Or is there a situation where he can do a managed fire watch and stay open until he gets a fire suppression system in? Or what are the options or what are possible next steps?
Well, so I'm not gonna give legal advice here, but as a matter of law, right? If the sprinkler system was required to have an issue when they submitted the plans and drawings, it was never installed, the building's never been legal to business. As to whether enforcement is going to occur, that's gonna be up to the local and the code enforcement here. So I think the options you need to seek legal counsel, probably yourself and probably the owner too, to make a decision on what the risk tolerance is. Do they stay open and risk it? And then, you know, if something ultimately happens, people are liable and sued, or do they close down in their own volition without the state or a local forcing them to do so? But from my perspective, as a pure issue of law, if the sprinkler system wasn't required and it was never installed, and it was made as a unilateral decision to not install it, that was purely a violation of the law and it's illegal, full stop. In terms of enforcement, that's gonna be up to DHS and the local. And then you guys have to make your decision yourself, but, that decision, the only way for the building to be in legal existence at the time was to either A, put the system in, or B, have a variance, because the variance is the legal blessing to take it out. So the building has never been in legal existence based on the facts that have been presented here today. Enforcement's a whole nother question. But ultimately, they need to make a decision, or enforcement may come from the local state. That's all I can say.
Can I ask that? Because he's mentioned state inspectors a couple of times. Has a violation been open at this location from the state, or has it all been coming from the local level so far?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that
So
last
the
part.
question is, when the state came through, because you had mentioned that you had worked with local, or someone had worked with local, but the state came through
Yes.
and actually cited you, so they wrote a violation, correct?
Yes, I believe so. I haven't seen the violation. It was a verbal situation.
You don't do verbal situations.
I don't know if I've,
Yeah.
it might have been emailed. I don't know if I've seen the email, so.
So I would assume that they would have, as any inspector would have come up, they would have given you a written violation to cover themselves.
Okay,
So
then
there should be,
I assume
I
it
would
was,
assume
yes.
that that would be with the owner, and he may not have
Shared that.
shared that with you.
My name is Matthew Cronley. I'm the Chief Inspector for Indiana Department of Homeland Security. I am in charge of code enforcement, fire and building safety in the state of Indiana. If this came from a local, I'm going to continue to defer to the local. The local will end up coordinating with the Indiana Department of Homeland Security, the State Fire Marshal's Office. If in fact it does warrant a building closure, it would be up to the Indiana State Fire Marshal to approve or deny a fire watch. So at this time, after this meeting, DHS will get in touch with a local building official and recommend that they take action in this matter.
Okay. And so, so our next correspondence should be with the local building authority to determine next steps as far as fire watch or no fire, or fire watch or closure until we get a fire suppression system in. Is that correct?
The local fire and building officials will come to make an official violation order if one has not been written already. If they would try to agree to a fire watch, they would request that to the fire marshal himself, and the fire marshal, the Indiana State Fire Marshal, would be the one to approve or deny the fire watch. Sake of conversation, if that fire watch was denied, then it would be an emergency closure.
And that would be at a meeting with the local fire and the state fire, correct?
I don't know about it being a meeting. It would probably just be a on-site discussion.
Okay. And when, just because, I mean, he has employees, he has people eating there right now. Is that a scenario that he will be given notice of when they will be there to meet and to find out what his proper next steps are?
I'm not in charge of the
From a
local
state, from
fire
a
or building
state's code?
department. I'm not in
Understood.
charge of the local fire building department. It would be up to their department to schedule when the visit will occur.
Okay.
My office is only there to support the local jurisdiction.
And so, and then just, so I'm completely, I apologize to be naive about this. And so, just so I understand all the details, if he asks, random questions and so on. And in my future knowledge, regardless if a local building commissioner or local fire commissioner says, hey, you do not need this, or we are accepting of this, even though it does not meet state building codes. If they say they are accepting of that, that doesn't make a difference until everything is approved by the state, because the state has ultimate authority over the local authorities having jurisdiction.
That is
Is that
correct.
what I'm hearing? Okay,
Only
and then,
IDHS and the commission have the authority to grant variances to state law, the rules. So yes, you're correct. If a local told you that, it would have been, and again, and you may have relied on it to your own detriment. That's why both professional and legal advice can be valuable in scenarios like that. It was erroneous advice, and that's for you to seek remedies if you think that you have them. But at the end of the day, the Fire Prevention and Building Safety Commission is an executive branch agency that promulgates the rules. DHS through statutory authority, and then the commissioner are the only ones that can grant variances to those rules. So if someone orally told you that, it was most likely incorrect. I wasn't there, but they cannot do that.
Understood. No, that's more from my knowledge, just to understand when the code says, or local authority having jurisdiction, realistically, when the code says local authority having jurisdiction, does not mean any local building commissioner, fire commissioner, fire chief, or anything like that. It is state only that is the actual local authority having jurisdiction.
I think this gets really nuanced and detailed, but there's portions of the building code where the authority having jurisdiction can't allow you to do certain things, and then they can make requirements and relieve some requirements. But in terms of variances to the law, the answer is no. But it will say, and there are certain things I know during construction phases, it will say that the local has some authority to do some things. So it's not 100% accurate, but in terms of variance from the code, essentially blessing something that would otherwise be illegal, that only can come from the state of Indiana through these two bodies.
And even if the local department was to visit the location today and recommend that they could continue operation with a fire watch, it would still need to be approved by the state fire marshal. So
okay.
Even if the local recommended that they're comfortable with that, it would still be determined at state level.
Okay, all right. I appreciate, I thank you for that clarification. Because I know that when going through the code, there's a lot of items that says local authority having jurisdiction. And I always assumed that was a local, if that municipality or that government had a local building commissioner or local fire chief, fire inspector, variety of what their terms are, that they were the locals in that aspect of it, not the state. But what I'm understanding is that it's the state that has the state is the only ability to essentially say, yeah, you don't have to do this.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I thank you guys. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. So.
So back to the two pending items, we have two renewals for industrialized building systems for TR Arnold and EMC. DHS supports both of those.
I'll make a motion to approve TR Arnold and EMC.
Second. Commissioner second. Okay. Commissioner Burgess?
Yes.
Commissioner Cook?
Yes.
Commissioner Grissom?
Yes.
Commissioner Davidson?
Yeah.
Commissioner Height?
Yes.
Chairman? Yes. Commissioner Panorama?
Yes.
Commissioner Port?
Yes.
Commissioner Slaughter?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Commissioner Zanger?
Yes.
All right, those are approved. Let's see. Report on admin review is there for your perusal. You want to take a look at that. We do have one change next meeting. Our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, January 7th, and we will be meeting in the auditorium across the hall.
We up on the stage?
Yes.
That's where
All right.
All right. There's nothing else. We adjourn. Thank you, everybody, and have a happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, guys.
I got you.